Hello again and welcome to the WSBI ESBG Exchange Podcast. Today's podcast is for Tuesday, 21 May 2019. I'm James Piper, Senior Advisor for Communications at the two associations who have a mission to help savings and retail banks thrive. This is episode 8, the second in a series of podcasts on the EU elections and the ESBG memorandum released earlier this year. Like every podcast, we highlight news from savings and retail banks in some 80 countries around the world. As I just noted, this week it's Europe. The European elections are in full swing with 751 seats up for grabs in the European Parliament. As those elections are taking place, ESBG, the European Savings and Retail Banking Group, have published ideas designed to help Europeans prosper in the coming years. Just how is outlined in that ESBG memorandum. Joining us again in Studio 4A is Sebastian Stodulka, who heads up our Regulatory Affairs Department here at ESBG. Sebastian joins us for part 2 of our discussion on the ESBG memorandum. Sebastian, thank you for joining us for part 2.
Thank you for having me, James.
Together for a Growing and More Integrated Europe, that's the name of the memorandum that was released earlier this year. So we wanted to talk further. We of course talked earlier about some earlier sections in the document, but we wanted to talk more about this Pro-Europe manifesto. So let's look at some other sections of the memorandum. And first of all, let's dig into something that I think and most people think is really emerging in finance and in society, and that's sustainability and sustainable finance. So we wanted to touch on sustainable finance because we see a wave of calls for policy that addresses green issues. But perhaps you could expand on that and other aspects of sustainability, the business and people aspects.
Definitely, James, with pleasure. So you rightly say sustainable finance is a hot topic indeed within the banking and policy circles, and I would say for a very good reason. I'm personally probably also belonging, or hopefully belonging, to the people who still will be alive in 2050. This is often named as a key date. And I could not agree more that I would like to live in a world that has somehow managed to mitigate climate change and has become more sustainable than it is nowadays. But also the association ESBG, of course, fully agrees with the aim to channel more funds into sustainable projects. This is exactly what the European Commission would like to do with its action plan. It's about tackling climate change, and it's in addition to that also about ensuring social cohesion. And I think we fully agree, we could not agree more with these 2 points. I would dare saying that our members are fully committed to the social dimension. If we look at their business model, I would say it's a very inclusive business model. ESBG members do provide fundamental banking services to all. And also with regards to the environmental, the climate aspect of sustainable finance, our members, not just now, but for a long time, have already been supporting projects to SMEs, to households, to authorities, to, for instance, increase energy efficiency in buildings. So this is not new to our members, and I think they offer attractive solutions to everybody around there. 2 aspects that we additionally would like to mention with regard to the sustainable finance debate is that we think the incentives need to be there for the real economy, for private households, for SMEs. And when there are these incentives, these solutions, I think people will get a more sustainable mindset, and we are there. We are there to help. We are there to contribute. We are there to support. And the second aspect, maybe this is the invitation to our decision makers, is that we need to reach a very well-balanced approach in legislation. Wide debate is out there currently on the taxonomy, which should provide a framework, which should provide definitions with regard to sustainable finance. And we can only encourage the decision makers to make these definitions as clear as possible on the one side, but also providing a bit of flexibility so that we are good in a transitional phase, that the definitions are not too static, the concepts are not so static, and we can accompany perfectly this process of becoming more sustainable all around.
Do you have any examples of taxonomy in practice? Are there any specific terms or concepts or definitions that would be a good example for the listener?
It's hard to say. I know that some banks, some asset managers already have their own taxonomy. So that's what I was also mentioning before, that sustainable finance is not completely new to our members. They have been living this principle already for a while and have developed that taxonomies for themselves already. How the EU taxonomy will look like, that is very, very hard to predict. We're still in the phase, or the legislators are still in the phase of making up their minds. I hope it will be something very workable, and not just from the banking sector point of view, but from the entire society's point of view.
Why is the EU taking this step, not leaving it to the market or to, let's say, member states? Why are they involved with EU taxonomy? Or why do they care about taxonomy? Might be a dumb question, but I thought I'd ask it.
I think it comes from the realization, from the awareness that climate change comes faster than everybody thought it would come, and it's never too late to make the first step. We hope at least it's never too late. So some regions in the world committed more to push more in the right direction, and the EU is one of them. And I think it is from this political mindset that the push comes for sustainable finance.
And if they get the taxonomy right, how will that impact savings and retail banks?
It will be clearer what one has to do and what one can do. There are probably so many open questions out there which hopefully will be clarified. So as a bank, as an asset manager, you would be able to see at the end of the day, this is sustainable, this is not yet, but we can make it sustainable, this is why we can support it, this is maybe something that that is not so much in favor anymore of the decision makers. Just to have clear definitions, clear obligations on what to disclose, what to report, I think that would help. But I very much like that you used the word right before, so we need to do that right. So in order neither to overburden banks nor overburden their supervisors, because they need to look into reporting, disclosures, risk management, and so on as well. And of course, we should also not overburden small and medium-sized companies with demands, reporting and disclosure demands that can just not be fulfilled because data are not there, are not available whatsoever.
So that's the business and people aspect of sustainability. Whatever is put forth in EU policy, it has to take into consideration the green part, the business side of things, and of course the people that have to follow these rules and
exactly
work it.
And that's why it's so difficult. It has so many aspects. It's not just the finance side, it's basically for the entire society. Then, as you rightly say, it's the environmental part, it's the social part. It's at the end of the day also the good governance part. It's not just hugely important, but tricky project.
Great. Well, maybe we can move on to the next question we wanted to bring up. And one aspect of the memorandum touches on financial inclusion and financial education. So these are well-established activities within the savings and retail bank world, and we think they need to continue. So maybe, Sebastian, you could shed light on our position and our thoughts on financial inclusion and financial education.
Sure, James. It's for us of utmost importance to foster financial literacy skills. We are convinced by doing so we can help provide citizens, and in particular the youth actually, with the necessary tools to succeed in life. There are so many situations where a good and solid financial education would help you. It's about pension schemes. How do you start saving for your pension? What are the right decisions, hopefully right decisions to make? Mortgages is another example. Many of us will be once or twice in their lives, maybe, to buy a flat, to buy a house, so that you approach this and deal with that in the right way is of fundamental importance. Then there are new phenomena like cryptocurrencies, so some education how to deal with this digital world is also something that needs to be looked at. And the entire, or this is a broader concept, over-indebtedness. Of course, it's neither in interest of a consumer nor of the bank if this happens. So it's in all our interests to educate people well with regards to the financial skills they need.
So what are savings and retail banks doing on this front, either with youth education, for example, or beyond?
There is a lot that is being done. Our members are very active. Probably I will not speak about individuals, members, initiatives, then we would be sitting here for another hour. But I can tell you, it doesn't matter whether it's our Spanish member, our French member, our German member, our Austrian member, they all have great financial education projects in schools, but also for adults. So it's not only the youth that they have been focusing on. What do we do as ESBG as an association? I would like maybe to mention two examples, two initiatives. The first one is the European Stock Market Learning, which is a online simulation that has been in place since 1984, and up to now roughly 7 million students, pupils have already participated in it. And it's a great program. It's a yearly simulation, and we very much look forward to continue that, of course. The second initiative I would like to mention is the World Savings Day. You have maybe heard about it. It's almost 100 years old. It's always at the end of October. And what we do at ESBG is usually we have a big event in Brussels. We invite people to come. We have panel discussions, and so... And this year we will do the same. Actually, at the end of October there is a big event planned, and we this time try to link the financial education aspect with the digital era. Everybody who listens to this podcast is of course welcome to join.
Well, that sounds really interesting. Great stuff. And that's kind of a segue to another set of questions that I might be asking in a few minutes with Natalie. So when she arrives, maybe we can talk more with her. Okay, well, I don't want to get any further into the document because we've already gone over so much of it, but we really recommend anyone who's got appetite to learn more about savings and retail banking and our position on a host of issues to go ahead and download it. It's on our homepage. You can't miss it. So, Sebastian, thank you for joining us, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Thanks again, James. It was a pleasure.
Joining us now in Studio 4A is Natalie Staniewicz, who leads our innovation and digitalization efforts here at WSBI ESBG. Welcome.
Hello, James.
Okay, Natalie, it's your turn. It's all about innovation and digitization and the need for an innovation-friendly level playing field. So tell us more about this section of the memorandum and what ESBG thinks about all the digital stuff that is sweeping over banking and what it means for Europeans.
Of course. Well, James, digital and innovation is touching upon a lot of different industries and also financial services. And it is a very big opportunity, of course, for financial services because it gives the opportunity to serve the client better with new technologies. But at the same time, it's a challenge, especially in the policy area, because there needs to be a balance found. On the one side, the policymakers need to fuel innovation and not hamper it. But at the same time, they need to create a level playing field, boost competition, while really making sure that consumer protection, high levels of cybersecurity and data protection are ensured.
Those are really hot topics right now with all the big giants of technology. They're really, really being scrutinized on things like data protection. So it's very, very timely that we put that in. Wanted to talk about fintech then. Could we go deeper into the fintech and the importance of defining what fintech is?
Definitely. So you already said, for us, the importance is always level playing field. So fintech is financial technology. A lot of people see fintech equals entity, fintech equals startup, but in a policy discussion it's important to really say fintech is technology-enabled innovation in financial services. So in the sense of if you use fintech as startup, it can be confusing because if they are considered as different entities, this can lead to misjudgment in terms of defining a regulatory approach to innovation. So fintech can be provided by financial institutions such as savings and retail banks, but it can also be, of course, provided by new entities. And oftentimes these new entrants focus on a very specific activity in the supply chain of the financial sector. So it's important to really look at the whole financial services economy, not only as startups, and fintech is financial technology.
So banks can be considered fintechs if they're building in-house platforms, for example.
Exactly like you said it now. So not banks cannot be fintechs.
No?
Banks can do fintech. That's the importance.
That's subtle. That's a subtle difference. That's important to know. And we know our members are really doing fintech. As you highlight during your innovation workshops that you convene, we've done how many now? 6, 7?
6, and the next one is upcoming in Prague in June.
So that's the 7th.
That's the 7th then, yes.
So our innovation work marches on. All right, let's dig deeper into level playing field. So where else can level playing field be applied?
Yes, so level playing field on the one side can be towards stakeholders, but on the other side also towards regulation and region, in the sense that there are a lot of roadblocks in inharmonious application of policy approaches across member states. So for certain areas such as KYC and e-identity, it would be important to have a level playing field across regulation and regions. And then there is another area, a third one, we can say, it is data access. So level playing field in terms of data access, because non-European giants, some call them big tech, are entering the European market. And we of course know that digital platforms have brought about a lot of different benefits for the internet economy as a whole, but their rapid growth also generates various concerns and challenges. And especially since these platforms now expand into offering financial services, which also means that they have access to consumer data and they have services around this consumer data. And as you know, consumer protection is very important in the European Union and policy, and also to us. So there should be a level playing field, especially required when it comes to access to data. So certain conditions would be needed both for incumbent smaller players and larger big tech companies, and these conditions should be the same in terms of access to data. So there are some cases where big tech companies deny the financial industry access to their interfaces, so software, hardware interfaces, and this shouldn't be the case. So we would call for a tailored legal framework to create a level playing field, also in terms of data access, for instance, in voice banking or mobile payment.
Okay, so those are good examples of how it can be applied. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about when it comes to innovation and digitization?
I think we've covered what we've included in the memorandum now. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of high-level principles in view of the elections, but we will produce a second memorandum which will go out after the elections, and we will dig in a lot deeper into a lot of subtopics on digital and innovation. For instance, innovation facilitators, such as sandboxes, innovation hubs, AI, crypto assets, ICOs, crowdfunding, cloud, cybersecurity, and also the data access question. So there will be more things and positions to come.
Great. And I'm sure the newly elected parliamentarians and the newly installed commission will hopefully enjoy reading that. So thank you.
We hope so.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. And as always, this is, I think, your third time on the podcast. So thanks again.
Always a pleasure, James.
That's it for this podcast for the 21st of May, 2019. Special thanks to our technical guru, Alexander Duchamont, and WSBI ESBG's Sebastian Stodulka and Natalie Staniewicz. I'm James Piper, signing off until next time. Thanks for listening. For more information about WSBI and ESBG, go to our website. Visit us on YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. The podcasts are available on both SoundCloud and YouTube.